Welcome back and thank you for being here. We will be starting the first introductions of what the program is for the next 2 hours. We will finish at 2 sharp. And this is the expanded media session in which we change the tone of the conversation. I think for those of you who were here in the first session this morning, which was more about maybe the startups and the companies that are in this business of AI and film. And in this expanded media session, we try to, let's say, compensate this presence, which is already somehow overwhelming, of somehow this vision of the industry, to invite different artists and people who have been not only experimenting with maybe generative AI or thinking or making conceptual artwork related to a critical and poetical point of view of what AI can be, but also to people who are practitioners and who have a standpoint that they usually express through their own work. I think this is important to keep in mind, since we have people who have an extraordinary work which is already by itself a way to approach AI in different and innovative ways. And of course, some of these people are always, like many artists, also teaching in universities or writing, etc. So we will have a chance to have some debate, and we will also follow some of their ideas through their visual presentations in some cases. I would like to say that we are really happy to have here our dear friend and admired artist, Anna Carreras. Anna is a local artist, creative coder, and her generative art is nowadays all around the globe in different exhibitions in which we can see what her own practice is. I must say that Anna got her PhD lately, so she probably is very used to approach her own work from a very analytic way. But we asked her to try to relate specifically to this idea that we are trying to explore in this session together with the audience and in a participative way. The idea is to try to think about media art in times of programmed obsolescence of technology. This means that somehow we are at the intersection of art, science, technology, and society. I think that is common to all the guests today. And with this, I leave the floor to Anna Carreras. Please welcome her. Thank you.
Hello. Welcome for coming. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks, Rock, for the presentation. I think the conversation that will happen afterwards, after all the artist presentation, is the most interesting part of this summit and this conference. So I'm not going to talk about my own work, just we'll be opening questions, we'll be tackling some of the situation that we have currently now for artists that are working with digital art, and in my case, the ones that we are using Web3, blockchain, to trade or to be able to make a living from our own work. Yeah, thanks. So yes, that's it. Instead of presenting what I'm doing, I will tackle some of these questions. Is art or memes what we are doing, or it's something art on the Web3, on the blockchain? It's something that it's going to be the future for digital art, or it's only scams? So this is what I do. I actually do digital art that ends up hanging on the, just for a little bit of context, but I'm not going to talk about my work. I end up doing visual works that end up hanging on the collector's walls, get printed, or at some point end up in some galleries. So there are physical exhibitions of them, sometimes using print, sometimes they are using screens, they are showcased using screens. And I'm not into artificial intelligence at all, so if you are here for AI, this won't be the case. I'm using algorithms to create the artwork, but these algorithms doesn't know anything. They are written from scratch. They don't use models. They don't know any data. They don't have data sets behind. They create from zero, from the blank page, and only the instructions and the code makes them grow, makes them generate the final artwork, the final piece. So that's what we call generative art, but not AI generative art. So it's like just a small distinction, because these days we have this bunch of information going on, and we are getting a little bit lost in this arena. So. So we are using algorithms, so we are using technology, and we are creating with algorithms these artworks, but they are generated from scratch with no intelligence at all. So that's it. We are doing something, just simple instructions, color, shapes, dynamics, movements, and this can end up, even if it's not intelligent, can end up in really, really complex behaviors and complex things. And we can discuss that further if you are interested in that. And this kind of works, this is the code behind this artwork here that it's titled Brava. Usually I release them as an NFT, so they end up being NFTs, and digital art pieces released as NFTs. So, and then here comes the question: is this art, or are we playing and releasing memes? And I brought this another art piece, this fake autopip by Dmitry Cherniak, which is a friend and a colleague, another artist, just to show you that looks like this can be something coming from the US, pushing a lot, these companies they were mentioned before, pushing a lot for the technology and whatever. But come on, we are in a globalized world, and this is some peeps or pepes, or I don't know even how to call these frogs, that are in my neighborhood in Barcelona. So let's face that globalization also brought this kind of memes or culture to our homes, to our neighborhoods, and near to that, to where we live. This is not Barcelona, this is Paris, and this is some crypto citizens, this kind of PFPs that also inhabit the blockchain a lot, if you have been digging around. And they are spread around, they were spread around the globe by Bright Moments, which is an online gallery selling generative art and generative AI art. So, or generative art, I don't know even how to call it. Generative art and generative art created using AI models. So, just to show you that now there's communities behind that. There's communities behind that are related to this kind of things. We have crypto citizens that are showcased in Venice Biennale or in London in different events. We have people around that. So this is creating even real life communities of people behind these ideas. We have crypto citizens, we have crypto kitties, we have apes, we have punks, we have a bunch of this kind of PFPs, and even ZKM, the Center for Art and Media of Karlsruhe, presented that. You have here an exhibition that they ran 3 years ago, just with 2 punks showcasing that this is something going on, and a ringer from Dmitry Cherniak, again, an artwork from Dmitry Cherniak. So even museums interested in new media grasped the importance of these communities or these artworks or this movement going on. This just to make sure I'm not defending them, I'm not promoting them, I'm nothing related to that, I don't really do anything similar to that, but just to make sure, to attest or to show that art is not apart from the culture, and the culture that surrounds artists, art is permeable to that. So it ends up, the contemporary culture, going into that artworks, influencing that artists and that artworks, and getting into the museums and into what we do and into the pieces that we are creating. To explain this weird situation, whether contemporary culture, video games, PFPs, memes, and things like that are going into the art wall, I think there's some difficulty on that because we are quite lost in this situation, and with the super mass production and going fast that we are facing. So some new agents appear to explain that. I just present you, or I brought just two of them. Random, that just started to explain or to trying to tackle the history of generative art and how this comes from the avant-garde of the last century, and it's something that it's going on the art wall, but it's not just not arrived or pop up from nothing or nowhere. So they are trying to open conversations and doing some research and establish conversations from living artists to the pioneers to have like a new way or a way to explain again or to being able to navigate this space that is changing so fast. There is also Right Click Save, another journal that just presented a book which is trying to grasp some of what's going on this scenario and what can happen, what can happen in the ecosystem. And even this year, Taschen stepped into the arena, presenting a book titled On NFTs that tries to grasp some of the artists that have been doing some or releasing some of their art on the NFT space, on the blockchain. So trying also to be someone, as they have already been, establishing or yes, like making a statement of maybe this is art and who is doing these kind of things and who is not. So when these things happen for digital art in this context, it's like, okay, now maybe there's a market for digital art. And this is A2P, it's an experiment that was run in the first version in 2019. And I wanted to highlight it because it's like, okay, in this context of digital art, we have digital art pieces that can be copied and reproduced without altering it. The copy, it's exactly the same image or the same video or the same file as the original, so we can have infinite copies of that art, not altering them. How artists can distribute their art in this case and in this digital scenario, so they can make a living from that. And A2P was an experiment run in, I said that in 2019 by Casey Rias and some other curators initiated by Casey, as a platform where artists were trading between them, between peers, some of their artworks, just a collection of 10, and during a week they were sharing those artworks between them, keeping an artist proof and sharing the rest. So what enabled that was the artworks were exchanged, and what was recorded, it was just explorative, and it was like a way to make a performance and an online performance, but also some research on that. it's these tradings, these movements were recorded on a blockchain, on the Big Mark blockchain, a blockchain that is not longer in use, but they were recorded then. The transactions are still there, recorded, and we can know from that, we can know who owns which of the other artists' artworks. Was like an initial exploration and something that opened or proved that the blockchain can enable this market for digital art. And that's what we have now, actually. We have several platforms, several blockchains running marketplaces and digital galleries that sell art. We have platforms on Ethereum as art blogs or Alba. We have Feral File, that it's another gallery that runs on Ethereum and Tezos blockchain. We have Xhash, that it's run on Tezos, and lately even on Bitcoin, on the Bitcoin blockchain. We are starting to see some art released there. What we have that, so it's like, okay, for the first time, some technology enabled a market. The market was already there, but enabled some market. We have a bunch of galleries now. Some of them are curated, some of them are open, so you don't need any invite or curator to invite you to publish your artworks there. And what makes this is like, okay, artists must take care of their own contracts, blockchain contracts, but come on, we were already taking care of our own contracts before that technology and before the blockchain. So it's like, okay, at the end, we always need to be doing our numbers, our bureaucracy, and our contracts. So nothing that we cannot manage or we artists have not been facing for years. And what makes this possible, it opens the possibility for any artist to freely create a project or an artwork series and publish that on the blockchain on some of the open marketplaces or galleries to sell their art. What makes also this is like, okay, if it's so democratic and so easy to publish artworks and we have a market for that, we have money, and if we have money, maybe we have scams. No? Welcome to scams. So yes, this happens, but come on, I brought also some examples of no internet technology that is also related to art world that has been scamming collectors and museums. And if you are in Barcelona and you want to feel how it's about getting scammed in the non-technological way, just go to Las Ramblas and you will feel that. Pretty sure, so with no internet or technological, well, technology, but not digital technology involved. So I brought this example of a museum that we have not far away from Barcelona, 1 hour driving. It's a museum in Girona. They had a triptych from the Romanic era and that acquired in 2010. And before the pandemics, some auction house in Madrid was selling the same identical 3 artworks, the 3 triptych, the triptych. And they were like, we cannot not buy, we need to buy those artworks. We already bought them, but we need to buy the new ones because we are not sure which ones are the false ones and which are the true ones. So they ended up having 3 and 3, 2 identical 3 pieces in their museum. And it took them like 2 months or 3 to discover which ones were the false ones, and the ones they already owned were the false ones. The new bots were the true. So they end up doing an exhibition explaining how difficult it is to know which ones are the true ones, the false ones, and how you can end up in a situation like that. Okay, we have the same situation in the digital world. So we have a lot of discussions and conversations about that. There's an article by Tyler Hobbs and other generative artists discussing this, but we have been discussing in our community a lot what's going on with the scams and these ideas. It's okay, that artwork, that digital art piece, it's there. Everyone can download it, can see it, can have it in their own computer. Can people use that, even if they own the NFT of that piece? Can people use that to create some other artworks? Can you use my work, my art pieces, to create your own ones? We are in the digital era creation, so it's not that, it's something that we need to bring again and again to the discussion. Even, okay, you are not using my art final pieces, but this is one of my projects through sets. And what about people using the same algorithm for creating their art? And this is like a tribute or something to sets that appeared later, and it's not mine. So this is my project, and this is not mine. But you can see that they actually use the same algorithm behind the work. What happens in the AI advent of these days are if we use the same algorithm, or we use the same style, or we use the same wherever data sets or whatever of other artists. And this opens another big questions, no? Otro melón, venga. Another big question about intellectual property, or what we can do with those images and artworks and what we cannot. And just to let you know what I feel about that, or what has happened in our community of generative artists, is that there have been people trying to use others' algorithms and other artists' projects to make profits on that. And what has pushed these people to stop doing that, or what has stopped these projects to go live, it has been the community themselves. So it's the community who has more eyes, it's more aware of what's going on, and can make some noise or push publicly for these people trying just to make profit to stop doing that. And in some cases, we were able to stop that. But because of the community, if you don't have that community behind, I think it's very, very, very difficult as an artist to just be aware of everything that is going on. So the importance of provenance here, how do we track? This is an exhibition in El Prado showing the reverse part of the artworks, where they put these stamps that gives you an idea of the provenance of the artworks. It takes experts months to see if an artwork is false or not, because of in which exhibitions was exhibited before and which kind of marks are in the reverse. We have the same information on the blockchain. You can follow that information, and for museums or for future institutions, I think it's important to know how to follow this, to know if that artwork came from the true artist and from the legit artist instead from someone else. I'm buying a Picasso or I'm buying a Picasa. I don't know. It's like, and it takes us to another important issue that we are going to tackle, that it's conservation. Once we have that information, how we do manage to make that artwork long-term and be able to have it in the long term, if it's a digital art, and we know what happened with net art, servers, obsolete technologies that just disappeared, systems that just disappear, and electronics, of course. This is a project by Entangled Others, Sofia Crespo and Felia Khan, that were trying to preserve their digital video created, but we have some other options, at least generative artists we have. We can release our artwork with our code. And this is what we are doing. Instead of releasing only the images and putting them on a server, which is the case of this off-chain art that we can release on the blockchain, we are just putting our code, the code that creates the artwork, is inscribed, it's put on the blockchain. This is something that we generative artists can do because our code is a lot of small kilobytes, so it's not that heavy, it's just text and numbers, so we are just coding numbers and letters. We can put that art, the thing that is behind that and that creates that, we can put that on the web, on the blockchain, and have it forever, because we have this promise that a blockchain will last forever. Big word, of course. And there's some other kind of artists, photographers, AI people, people doing animations or videos that cannot do that because the cost of doing that, it's too expensive for the artist and too expensive for the planet. So it's still no way to do that. That need to rely on some external servers. And if we rely again to some external servers, we can have these problems that NetArt, for example, already faced, or some other projects that were online already faced. So relate to that, this idea of there are some characteristics of using blockchain to preserve the artwork, but we need to be aware of the nuances and the details that there are behind of what we do as digital artists. We can have them off-chain, and there's people trying to preserve, organizing themselves, collectors, artists, organizing behind some clubs, trying to preserve the domains and the servers that keep this art. Or we can have the art published, as I mentioned before, inscribed on the blockchain, and we are kind of some responsible. I'm trying to do that in trying to long-term conserve or be able to rescue or be able to show my artwork on long-term. I'm trying to do that. But again, relying on technologies that at some point, some of them open source, can disappear. So what happened also this year is that some of the libraries and the code that 90% of the generative artists are used was already was also uploaded to the blockchain in trying to be responsible in that long term. So so many questions. Just open for the next artists that you will see. They have been working in different fields of digital art. We bring different experiences, different knowledge. So I hope we have a nice conversation later about how we preserve that, how we can use this technology to preserve digital artworks, how can we and discuss again about that. It's a discussion that has been opened several times, and I'm eager to open it again. So that was it.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I'm sure that after your presentation, there are so many questions that are open. And of course, we have the space to discuss them afterwards. Anna will be back in the colloquium, which we have entitled Cycles and Recyclings, dealing with obsolescence in media art preservation. And Anna Carreras, will be in the colloquium together with Florian Weigl and Patrícia Falcão. But before that, we have the presentations of three projects, three ongoing projects. The first one is Varvara and Mar, a creative studio based in Barcelona and Estonia. And Varvara and Mar have been working for the last 15 years in their works that are usually, but not only, digital art works. And many times they use mixed media installations, artificial intelligence sometimes, and I think that it's worth seeing them, not only as people who are relevant also in our local culture, but because they're internationally renowned for their work and for interest also in participative art. Please welcome Varvara and Mar. Thank you.
Hola, hola.
Okay, perfecto. Okay, thank you for inviting us, and thanks, Rock, for nice introduction. So, as Rock already said, we have been working for a long time in the field of media art, and let's say last 5 years we have been exploring the creative AI field, and well, from Anna you already heard, I think it's very nicely arranged. So what is generative art? So we will talk about generative AI, which is different thing, and also well, we show what is possible, but also we will talk like about the problems and difficulties with creative AI. So let's dive in, since we have quite a little time. And here is we love to show this paper, because here they used on your left they used AI to predict AI basically, and you can see that the amount of papers on arXiv is like exponentially growing. So and I guess who kind of a little bit follow, it's kind of a headache to follow all the new models. So for us as a visual artist, it's already, sometimes we feel like when we start to work on one art piece, it's when it's done, it's kind of maybe it's already not relevant, because you know there is already the new model. So I don't know, here were also the filmmakers. For them, I think maybe it's even more dramatic because they take longer time to finish the film, for instance. So when we started to work with AI, it was in this sense it's pretty descriptive in the gamers mode, so to say. It was for a user, let's say, it was really hard, and now for an average user is kind of very easy. But it comes with a cost, which we will talk later about.
Well, this is a timeline of models. It has been extremely fast, the transition. I mean, from first paper of GANs in 2014 to the diffusion, we actually have like this kind of GAN era and diffusion era. And we have projects along the way. Some of the pictures actually are from the projects that we use in different models. We cannot go definitely into detail of all, but definitely it is important that we build all in open source models, and that we still have a practice like Anna in code. Means we actually, the meme from before about hard and easy actually is not true, because we don't use any of our works are on the push the button. Our works are software driven, and our material is code and electronics in our installations, and it's very important to actually explain that artists, we need open source models, and I can explain you very simple why. It's because these services, APIs and so on, they change so fast that when you're producing the work, and then if you show after 3 months, it might be that it disappears. Means you need to actually rely on an open source model for it.
Yeah, so as you see, this graph looks like maybe from history books you would say, oh, this is a century, but actually it's just an 8 years. So if we were talking in the previous panel about regulations, so about preservation, nobody has thought, you know, if you want to do GANs again, well, and then it's also maybe it's wait, Mar, we have few time, and the GANs also, when we were creating with this, and we saw already, oh, the style GAN 2 comes out, and then came diffusion model. Then we thought like, okay, with this work, what we created in 2019, you know, it's totally irrelevant. But actually now it kind of becomes retro, so maybe it's not so hopeless. But here, what was happening also for us, why we came out actually so late with this, because it took really a long time, because we are more installation artists. So, and you could only create images. So for us it was really hard. Like, okay, what do we do with this kind of? It's kind of nice images, but what we do with them? So. In the end, we had one residency which talked about environmental crisis, and here we have 4 layers. Mara, you like to explain this?
Yeah, basically the video is actually the learning process of the model. It was a progressive GAN, and we built 4 data sets, and are the 4 places where the plastic lands. Plastic, as Ronald Barthes said, it is molecular material like AI. It works for everything. The only problem that it is AI consumes electricity, and plastic then has a long span thing, and we don't know how to recycle. And basically we have, like, from plastic on the landfills, plastic up of the water, plastic under the water, and plastic glomerates. Plastic glomerates, if you don't know, are these rocks that they're emerging onto the beaches, and are the new fossils of the human impact, whereas half plastic has rocks. And we trained the model on learning this, and actually this is a strategy in the GAN era that all the artists were using to build data sets to train the model. And here I can explain the concept of small models. We actually, artists, we use small models rather than the big models that they're using, the big tech AI. And to describe it, what is a small model is a model that you can run in 1 or 2 machines. And that's what artists need, because artists, we always had run our installation in 1 or 2 machines, few machines, something that is not a data center. And also this, on terms of preservation, it makes a lot of sense. And you need the model to run it in the machine, because you cannot rely on the cloud or something.
So we also kind of we made 4 prints, and in the beginning of, let's say, AI, when it was accessible for artists, generative one, it was one bottleneck was resolution. So we had to use kind of, first we used Photoshop algorithms, then now there are new models which allow you to blow up until 4K if you want. But also it's, I think, in terms of when we speak about retro, I think it's one way also how to kind of preserve. But you also, so our struggle how to make kind of a video, and also we wanted to do more sculptoric one. So then, of course, StyleGAN 2 came out, and it was also a COVID time, so everyone wanted really intangible works that they could show on the web, or they could show locally, that no travel is involved. Of course, for artists, it's kind of a sad, you cannot be there, but at the same time, it was a solution also, and it pushed us more into this, let's say, generative AI, and here was one project for Lanzarote Film Festival, or Photo Festival, sorry. It was postcard landscapes from Lanzarote, and post is also, well, I can later maybe in the break explain you the concept. But here you can see that the jump in a generative AI was pretty kind of impressive, because we could now produce like these immersive videos which are kind of never ending. And what we asked, I'm now not kind of presenting the sound, we also asked one local sound artist and one kind of totally tourist sound artist to do then the sound, to compose the sound for this generated works.
Just to explain you in one sentence, is basically this is the concept is a critical tourism. It's like this way of using artificial intelligence to reenact our creation of memory of a place. And it's 2 data sets. One is the data set of the tourists, taken in Flickr images that permissive license, and the other is images of Lanzarote without people that they reenact like the locals. And that's why here it has a lot of artifacts, because the dataset is very diverse, and there is a lot of plane spotters that actually take photos of planes, and also a lot of photos of beach, people, bars, all kind of sort of images that you will see as a tourist. And the other one was like just like landscape. And that's why one, it takes very good landscape, and the other, it takes a lot of artifacts and kind of very imaginative way.
Okay, with this project, Dream Painter, which was the interactive robotic art installation, we were finally kind of back to kind of more our formats, because we work a lot with interaction and installation format. And here, what we were doing, we were combining different things, because just AI is a little bit boring for us. So the robot is painting audience's dreams. So it brings you the mic, and while you are telling what you were dreaming about last night, while it's putting away the mic, we already calculating on clip what means your dream, so to say. If the Freud couldn't really understand totally, maybe AI will understand us. And then it was choosing the marker, and then the drawing your dream, and then in the end it was like cascade of dreams, because the paper was progressing with every dream. So, and also, while we thought that we can analyze, do psychoanalysis of the people with AI, actually what was happening, we were psychoanalyzing AI through audience interaction. Because these were kind of results of the dreams, some of them. And through this, we actually understood, and also, I guess, the audience understood like how the clip is kind of understanding the concepts and navigating how it composes the lines into concepts, and sometimes getting the meaning, sometimes not, and so on. So I think this interaction is something what really contributes towards understanding and explaining the current technology we are dealing with. So we went even further, and of course we asked like, well, if we can do all the 2D stuff, like what happens with AI if we bring in the physics and the material and also the 3D. For us was very obvious question, or we thought like you can do 3D, but in the end it was kind of illusion. The 3D is quite illusion in AI, so because it is 2D, and we kind of really tried hard to still get out the 3D from the neural net, and then we used the clay to produce our sculptures and also glaze them by hand. So it's kind of a combination of artisans. Yes, we are done also. Artisans and artisans of, I don't know, the neural age. So yeah, I just want to show last project. This is not the latest one. Maybe this is, well, I put the video mark and explain.
Well, before we just pass it to the visions of destruction, that is like with eyes with destroying beautiful landscape. And the last one is Needle in a Haystack, is currently shown in Tartu, in the cultural capital of Estonia. This is south of Estonia, and we have now a robot that is looking at this impossible task of finding a needle in a haystack. And this poetic work is basically talking how much we give agency to these AIs, and we think that they are better than us, but in fact it's really hard for the robot to find the needle. If a human will find it faster, because like the gripper is complex to pick the hay, and it needs to pick in the right way, and it falls many times, and basically.
Yeah, well, maybe the last verse also, it's, we were, conceptually talking about this, but also here if you ask like, okay, where is the AI here is we are calling about functional AI, right? So we are not generating anything, but we are kind of teaching the machine what is hay, what is needle, and how kind of to orchestrate this process of finding a needle in a haystack, which, yeah, sounds very simple.
And if someone asks what is using in the back, in the hook, is basically using a LLM with vision, and it has, like the robot has like an internal dialogue with him, like what him or his or it to decide.
I think we have to now leave the stage, but find us on the break and we can talk more. You know, it's problematic, two of us sometimes.
Is this yours, Varvara?
No,
okay. Thank you very, very much, Varvara and Mara, and sorry to give you such short time slots for so many interesting projects that you have done. Our next guest is Antoni Abad, and he's one of the pioneer artists in the digital scene in Barcelona, and his work has been exhibited worldwide. Antoni, if you want to come up. I just want to say that the invitation to Antoni is not only because of his valuable work, but also because our university, Pompeu Fabra, is involved in the future development of one of Antoni's collective art projects, socially engaged art project, which is Blind Wiki. And Antoni will give his presentation with a video about this project. So please welcome Antoni Abad.
E cantar a beleza de ser eterno aprendiz. Eu sei que a vida devia ser bem melhor e será, mas isso não impede que eu repita. É bonita, é bonita e é bonita. É bonita, é bonita e é bonita.
Can you turn the volume down? Okay, so we keep with this documentary that is of the last project of Blind Wiki in Sao Paulo, and I don't know, maybe it could complement what I will try to tell you today. Yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks to be invited, and thanks all of you for being here as well. So, this year, 2024, is the 20th anniversary since I started a whole series of projects involving 22 groups at risk of exclusion from Europe, the Americas, Australia, and the Algerian Sahara. So between 2004 and 2014, groups of taxi drivers, motorcycle couriers, gypsies, refugees, immigrants, former Colombian guerrillas, sex workers, and participants with limited mobility were invited to use smartphones to express their experience and opinions, and instantly publishing them on the Megaphone.net website. So those enthusiastic participants transformed their smartphones into digital megaphones, amplifying their individual and collective voices. In 2015, well, because I have 8 minutes to talk, I'm trying to go slowly because I don't have much to say, okay? So I hope I can do it. So in 2015, I started the development of the Blind Wiki platform at the Spanish Academy in Rome, which to date has been deployed in Sydney, in Wrocław, in Valencia, Sao Paulo, and in the Berlin and Venice biennials. So what is Blind Wiki? Let's unveil the unseen. I don't know, I could see that here, okay. But you don't see the interpreter. Well, in the side you see it, yeah. Okay. So, Blind Wiki is a community-based smartphone project that invites citizens who are blind or partially sighted to share their own experience on the difficulties and facilities they find in their day-to-day lives. As a sensorial and locative map of the unseen, Blind Wiki holds not only information on barriers and accommodations, but also is a repository of storytelling posts. Designed to build a location-specific overview of the cityscape as experienced by people with vision loss, Blind Wiki fosters experiences and opinions in order to produce a collaborative and creative cartography. So, the application, this is based in a smartphone application. The application for smartphones allows participants to record site-specific audio and immediately publish it on the Blind Wiki platform. So, visually impaired and sighted citizens have the opportunity to walk through their city with the smartphones, receiving data that participants have previously tagged. That's to say that it has this part of augmented reality that is not a project that you only can check on a computer, but you can walk the street listening about the perception of the city, of that people that cannot see it. They cannot see it, but we don't know also. We have no idea what they can see, what they cannot see, I mean. Okay? So it makes this strange paradox when walking in the city. So, as I said, Blind Wiki app triggers geolocated audio descriptions and stories, tagged obstacles and chronicles. Blind Wiki is based in weekly meetings and sound recording expeditions where participants map the neighborhoods of their choice. So that's to say that when participants meet, they propose, discuss and decide of the subject matters they are going to treat in their recordings. You know? And also they decide of the neighborhoods that they want to map, and they do this collective sound sound recording expeditions that are quite impressive. For instance, in Sao Paulo, sometimes we were 100 people in the streets, okay? You see, that's the first time that you see that they were a thing here, because in Sao Paulo there is a big problem with people stealing phones, smartphones. So we decided to do that and to be together to do the project. But there were 100 participants in Sao Paulo, so we had to make groups, different groups. Yes, all temes? 2 minutos, okay. Okay, so where is it? Because I wanted to talk about this thing of preservation. But, yes. Well, anyway, I just talked to that a little bit. Therefore, the proposal for the preservation of the Blind Wiki platform consists of a plan where participants exercise autonomous governance in order to facilitate the development of each Blind Wiki node. So it's not a question of preservation, but a question of going ahead, okay? Of achieving the sustainability, you know, to have these projects continue on their own, that the participants are the ones that, I find this, how to say that in English, but now I don't find it well. So at the moment, we are working with the support of the Art Association and the Universitat Pompeu Fabra, in a replicability protocol that is in the works, which will help participants on the organization, preservation, sustainability, and dissemination of their own Blind Wiki node. It's like a node, okay? Not a node, but a node. And given that everybody was talking today of AI, you know, I didn't want to talk about that today, I had not that prepared. But at the moment, we are working with the AI hub of the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya in a project that will make the app, you know, the Blind Wiki app, far more fast, you know, because at the moment, being a blind person and interacting with the phone with audio, you know, when you need to introduce tags, you know, every tag can be an interaction, 6 or 7 interactions. So AI will solve that, and using technology at its minimum expression, it will solve that problem that, how do you say, of just, well, it will reduce to post an audio message in just the equivalent of answering a phone call. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Antoni. The idea of the preservation by changing a governance of a project which is collective but has been triggered and followed by you all these years, and now trying to find this way and these protocols for the community to be able to sustain the project in the context of public universities across Europe is one of the reasons that we are so excited about this collaboration, and also the mixture between the collective intelligence of blind people and the artificial intelligence, which makes them easier for them to tag their own voice and sound messages. Our next presentation is by a guest that is an expert, is many things, I should say. He is a writer, he's a musician, he's an expert in art conservation, and he has, I think, very relevant ideas related to the idea of remediation and what makes new media art being the old media art as soon as we face obsolescence. I am seeing back there, Mark, is there any problem with the translation? No. Okay, so Lino, si quieres acompañarnos. Lino is going to make his presentation in Spanish, and we will have an automatic translation by Google Meet. So, adelante, Lino, cuando quieras.
Créeme que me lo van a agradecer que hayamos usado el translation. Bueno, no podemos poner la imagen entonces, ¿no? No pasa nada. Pero... El GIF animado creo que sí ahora sale. Bueno, puse este GIF que me he inventado aquí, el reloj. Sabéis que está muy de moda hacer los skin, esto de los teléfonos, de los relojes digitales, ¿no? Y entonces lo puse porque es pertinente para lo que vamos a hablar aquí hoy, que es la remediación. Por ejemplo, yo les puedo preguntar si creéis que es continuo o si es discreto. Y claro, me diréis que es continuo, porque si os fijáis, los movimientos siempre recorren todas las posiciones, excepto ahora que ¿lo veis? Lo hice a propósito, para que no os sintierais engañados. Entonces, En la noción de continuidad, que detrás está la noción de analógico, viene de que puedes dividir el espacio en tamaños tan pequeños como desees, y esos tamaños se llaman infinitesimal. Pero por más, o sea, mientras que se dividan, se seguirá dividiendo, etcétera, etcétera. Mientras que lo discreto, a diferencia de lo analógico, digamos que va dando saltos. De hecho, muchos de los relojes pues, tienen un... Bueno, aquí va continuo, no va dando saltos, pero los otros irían dando saltos entre los segundos, ¿no? O los que son de numerito, pues es que eso no le queda otra que cambiar de número, ¿no? Entonces, ¿qué ocurre? Bueno, pues esto es un ejemplo de remediación. Es una, bueno, suponiendo que esto existiera, es una demo simplemente para hablar de ello, ¿no? Supongamos que existe un reloj que es analógico y que pues, ya no funciona más, ya no se pueden obtener ningún tipo de piezas de repuesto ni nada para mantenerlo funcionando. ¿Y cuál sería la solución? Bueno, pues lo que yo voy a proponer aquí es que justo es la remediación, la única vía que tiene un objeto de este tipo, ahora me voy a referir a ello en base a los medios, para sobrevivir en el tiempo. Y esto es fundamental, porque esto cambia la naturaleza de las obras. Y muchos artistas pues, no estarán de acuerdo, pensarán que es otra cosa, pero voy a intentar explicarlo. Bien, los expertos en medios suelen hablar de nuevo y viejo en términos cronológicos. Yo no utilizo esa nomenclatura. Para mí, los viejos medios son las prácticas artísticas tradicionales, llamémoslas, ¿no? Pintura, escultura, tal, que, digamos, tienen poca permeabilidad o poca conexión entre ellas, más bien están aisladas. Luego, Dick Higgins utilizó el término intermedia cuando se quería encargar al arte, ¿no? De la inmaterialidad, y utilizó el término intermedia para referirse a ese tipo de práctica, donde, digamos, nada es puro, sino que más bien todo está mezclado y todo hereda de cierta manera de una cosa a la otra. Pero toda esa tecnología, entre comillas, sigue siendo analógica. O sea, digamos que todas las vanguardias, los sismos, trabajaron con material con materia y también con, digamos, cuando trabajaron con energía, que esa es la diferencia para mí. La imagen materia está relacionada con los viejos medios y la imagen energía, digamos, está relacionada con los intermedios. ¿Y qué es lo que está relacionado con los nuevos medios? Pues la imagen información. ¿Qué cosa es la información? La información es complicadísimo de entender, aunque todos creemos que sabemos lo que es. Está relacionada con la incertidumbre y básicamente Claude Shannon la planteó en términos de ¿cuántas preguntas necesito de tipo sí o no para encontrar en un universo de respuestas la respuesta correcta? Esa es la idea de la teoría de la información que ha cambiado nuestras vidas y que dudo mucho que volvamos atrás. Con lo cual, por esa razón, creo que la remediación es obligatoria. Ahora, dicho esto, vamos a afinar un poco más. O sea, ya sabemos que son los viejos medios, los intermedios y los nuevos medios. O sea, nuevos medios es información. Ojo, la información tiene una propiedad fundamental y es que es imperecedera. Lo que es perecedero es el soporte, pero la información es imperecedera. Si quiero, la puedo tallar en una piedra, en los ceros y los unos. Eso va a durar ahí los siglos de los siglos. Lo que es perecedero es el soporte. Y ojo, nadie duda de que mañana aparezca un soporte que sea del tamaño de una célula y que cargue petas de información, porque ya se está trabajando a ese nivel. Fijaros cómo han bajado los precios de los terabytes y los gigabytes de toda esa historia, ¿no? Entonces, dicho esto, eso es muy importante, porque eso no pasa con la información analógica. La información analógica siempre está sometida a ruido, siempre. Y siempre está sometida a desgaste. Por ejemplo, un vídeo. El vídeo tiene un mecanismo mecánico, mecanoeléctrico, y la liga se desgasta y la cinta roza el cabezal y se desgasta, y etcétera, etcétera. El vinilo ni os cuento. O sea, el vinilo es el negocio del siglo, porque cada que lo pone hay una aguja que está arañándolo. Entonces, los medios analógicos siempre tienen ese problema, digamos, tienen el problema del ruido y tienen el problema del desgaste. Es natural 2 minutos, vale. Entonces, los nuevos medios no tienen ese problema. O sea, yo puedo, ojo, la última cosa que digo, y los nuevos medios, yo puedo hacer que funcionen como los viejos medios, que se comporten igual. Es, por ejemplo, una imagen de una Polaroid. Yo puedo hacerla que se vea exactamente igual. Al revés, no. Entonces, eso es una grandísima ventaja que, digamos, la idea es mantener la imagen. ¿Y qué es la imagen? Es esa piel con la que uno interactúa, ¿no? Ahora, el soporte, que es lo que hace que eso funcione, bueno, eso está para que funcione, no para otra cosa, a no ser que forme parte de la imagen, como son algunas obras de bioarte de Nan Pai. En ese caso hay que pensárselo mejor. Y hacer algo, se puede, pero hay que hacer algo más complejo. Y bueno, yo quería decir muchas más cosas, pero bueno, la remediación es todo lo que no necesitamos. Así que muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias, Lino. Gracias por aceptar la invitación. Thank you for coming. While we put the 4 chairs we need on the stage for the last part of the session, which will be this colloquium, I would invite Florian Weigl and Patrícia Falcão and Anna Carreras to please meet us here on the stage. And just to say that be careful, watch your step when you go up, if you go up the ramp. You can choose wherever to sit, or maybe if you leave me this chair to the right of the stage, I will sit on this side. You can choose, Anna. And let me introduce a little bit the 2 guests that haven't appeared yet in this session. Patrícia Falcão is a researcher on art preservation, conservation, and she has been working at the Tate Gallery doing this work of media art preservation. And now she is in a current research also about digital art and probably her perspective on practical work, trying to restore and maintain a collection which involves different cultural artifacts, some of them digitals. Gives also a perspective from an institution that has such a large, long tradition in art preservation. And on the right side, we have Florian Weigl, who comes from Rotterdam, the Laboratory of Unstable Media, which has always been a source of inspiration for many digital artists as an institution and also as a name. This instability of media is what we are addressing in general in this conversation. So without more presentation, only saying that we have used in a very peculiar way some English words to make the title of this colloquium, which is Cyclings and Recyclings, trying to think not in a linear way from the moment in which, from the inception or from the physical material production of an artwork to eternity in a linear way, which we think that is maybe a patriarchal or patrimonialistic way to understand conservation, and through the linearity of time, but trying to think, and this is why I think this colloquium can be a very lively conversation, and we invite anybody who wants to participate to try to think out loud and try to find other, maybe alternatives to this linear idea of from the moment an artwork is done to eternity, we have to preserve it and keep it as it was. So maybe I would start by asking Patrícia if she can give us a first input on what she has perceived this morning related to her own research and related to this idea of what should we do with new media art, which is already not new now.
Is it on? Okay.
Thank you.
So this is, like Rock said, I'm a time-based media conservator, and I've worked at the Tate for 15 years. What you are all probably very aware as well is that Tate has a very conservative collection in terms of media art. So my experience does not include trying to preserve either AI works or Web 3D. So that is immediately my, okay. But I do have a lot of experience looking at an artwork, and what we do for any artwork that we acquire is just assess the risks. And the aim is always, we want to show this work as close as possible to what the artist intended, whatever that may be, and that also changes over time. But in theory, I think what our Tate's mission, as defined by a government document, is we're preserving these things in perpetuity, which, you know, I wouldn't put money on that. But we're doing our best, and you know, we've got some things that have survived for 50 years now, like video, and we just acquired a work that is using AI, and it's from 1997, and it's still running on its own. It's actually going on, it's currently on display at Spike Island in Bristol. We had a little problem on yesterday, just before I left, that one of my colleagues resolved. So, you know, it's like, I wouldn't bet on it for 100 years, but actually 40 seems to be okay. And so when you talk about something as recent as AI or blockchain, I sort of feel completely at sea. But what I feel, there's two things that I think are really important. I think the idea, what Lino was talking about, of remediation, and this idea of, okay, you're creating a work, we know it's not going to last forever, but what do we want of it to survive? If you don't have a blockchain anymore, or if, you know, if the web is completely different, what is at the core of this work that I need to preserve? Is this just an image or an animation? Is the code? And that's something that we try to do for anything in the collection, is to try and understand what's relevant there. And sometimes it's the community of an artwork, so sort of, and the actions of the people around this artwork or this project. So it's very fluid and also changes over time. What people find important at one stage changes. Yeah, so sorry, I think that's my take for now.
Thank you very much, Patricia. I understand what you say, that you wouldn't bet in the conservation for the next 100 years, because if we only think about how electricity has changed in the last 100 years, we will find that it's hard to think what will happen in 100 more, especially if this instability keeps augmenting, because I think that is somehow related to this obsolescence. No, the instability is increasing progressively. So maybe Florian can give us some input or share with us some ideas about this.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy that you brought it. You extended the timeline a little bit, because I've been walking around here for 1.5 days, and I'm really excited about the, many artists also saying, well, I'm working with AI quite some time already. I've been working with it for 5 years, and then I love that. Of course, it got this boost, but it's also, of course, V2 has been around for 42 years, and I think one of the earliest projects were already, that I consider AI related. So it's also good to keep that into account. What's good to mention is that V2, we develop works together with artists, we present them. But we don't have a collection. We're not a museum. So, but why I said yes to the talk and think the talk is really interesting is that I consider the questions of conservation coming with, for one, developing the work, but especially presenting it for the second time or third time in a different context. And that's where, especially with AI, I see lots of interesting things happening. Looking back at what I really wanted to add as well is that, of course, AI still remains this quite broad term that we use quite often. I want to also demystify it a little bit, because it's been mentioned in the first talk or the first panel as well. Many, especially the early trained data, are humanly trained as well. So it's also building up on this. And what I always like is to make a distinction between artists that work with what I always call off-the-shelf AI. We've seen many examples of just prompting in existing available stuff, but also the artists that specifically choose to either train their own data sets or even program the entire system themselves. And that's in preservation quite an interesting division as well, because you hinted a little bit at it in just an informal conversation, that especially keeping these AI systems small and make them, well, I think even better to preserve, and so that's an interesting thing to add to the conversation, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the most revealing things that has been said this morning is when Madam Varvara said that most of their art installations are not based on a data center. They are based in 1, 2, 3, some computers, but that they are under the control of the artist when they are presented at present. But what will happen in some years, hopefully many, many years, when Barbara and Mar are not here and their daughter Nora has to turn on the installations again and see what's going on. No? And I tend to think about this in terms of maybe some of the fantastic literature authors like Bioy Casares, when he speaks about the invention of Morel, this strange island where there is this mechanism that's activated by tides and that generates these fascinating holograms like the presence of some of the characters. And, well, I hope I'm not doing a spoiler, but anyway, please read The Invention of Morel by Bioy Casares, or La Invención de Morel, in fact. And, but I wanted to ask Anna specifically about this idea of the NFT of the code, and not only of the image, because related to what Professor Lino Morales was introducing with this idea of the possibility of carving code into a stone and leaving this, at least this aspect, which is the seed that is able to generate as far as you have a well-configured machine, which is also a problem because we only keep the code, but we have no idea what kind of machine was running that code. We will probably be again in the situation of the golden record of the Apollo mission, in which Carl Sagan created these recordings which needed to represent the world, but then you have to build the record player for the golden record to tell you anything. So it's somehow paradoxically, I don't know. Anna, how do you feel about this idea of preserving code, and what is exactly what happened when you NFT this, the code of your generative works?
I don't get what happens when we carve that, but yes, I also was thinking about carving the code into stone or into metal. What also relates to what Patrícia said, it's like I just wanted to point this out. It's like they are trying to preserve works, like talking with artists and trying to capture the intention. And it's like, wow, this is quite new. Because if the artist is no longer there, we have a problem then maybe we need to rush or to talk to the artist now. So that means that for the first time, maybe we are involved, even the artists, in the conservation, long-term conservation of what we are doing. Also institutions, also developers. We are our developers. Mar and Barbara craft their own machine learning algorithms. We craft our own ones. Related to that, yes, code for me it's super important because it's the what's behind, and it's able to create that artwork. If we can preserve that code and we can preserve the seeds that created that work, we can reproduce that. And you are right, what about if we are not having the machine or the technology? And that Lino enters in the conversation. We need to recode that or remediate that. And there are some projects by current artists trying to restore or to recode, and the project is the Recode project. We are currently generative artists. We are trying to recode some of the pioneer artworks that were published in some conferences and academia magazines. So we are trying to bring those works back to the present, recoding them in languages and in platforms that can. And there's a problem there, and Lina was pointing that, because I don't know, there's some intention. So it's everything actually related, because there was some intention in that work, and maybe you are just recoding that, but you are not tackling, or you are not finding that intention. So you lose that part when mediating or recoding that artwork. And I can tell that because Lli works, it's an artist from Austria, was trying to recode a bunch of his initial works, and I was like naive, like, okay, I can help you recoding them because we know each other, and I was offering some help, and she was like, no, you cannot help me to recode my artworks, because I know what's behind, and I want. And there's something more than just the code that I want to achieve with the visuals that are there. So, there's you have a lot of work, but we are there, and we also, the artists, we know that there's a bunch of work there, and we can contribute to that, and we can enter the conversation, and we can adapt our practices, or we are trying, or I hope so, to adapt our practices to facilitate, or to make their work more easy in the future. So, I don't know if I answered the question.
It's a conversation more than questions. I think that these ideas that are triggered by our interactions right now are relevant, but I was thinking that when Florian says that V2 doesn't have like a patrimonial mission, so they don't have a collection, but Tate does. And I wanted to ask, following what Anna was saying, how close do you work with artists who are still alive in the planning ahead of what will happen with those artworks that are based in a medium that I guess that most of the artists already know that will disappear soon? No?
Yeah, so, I mean, Tate is this massive mammoth institution, so we have really clear processes of how things need to happen, which is really helpful for us, because it means we get resources to do what we need to do. And what this means is, and this started long before I started, in the late 90s, Pip Lawrenson, who was the first time-based media conservator in the whole world, that's quite... she already set up a process by which whenever an artwork is acquired, we have all these conversations about preservation. And of course, they've become a lot more sophisticated over time. The artworks have also moved from, we used to have 5 videos a year back in the early noughties, and now we have 40 videos a year, and I think this year we've got 5 artworks that have software coming in. So the team has expanded, the experience is expanding, but also the amount of different media in the collection is expanding. And still, if we look at software-based art, at the moment we have a total of maybe 30 works in an overall collection of, I'm going to say 80,000. This is a moving target, but and so we do have these processes to have these discussions. And at the moment, if I see an artwork that has software included, I'll say, okay, I'll need a few months to work with the artist or experts in the technologies to see what can we do now to make it possible to preserve it as well in the later stage. And it's always, I don't think you can do this without the artist or an estate, or the people who have been caring for this work more recently. So for the AI piece I mentioned is it's a moving wheelchair that was created. It's called Psalms by Donald Rodney, who's a British artist. He passed away shortly after that. and so the work was developed by the University of Plymouth, the AI, or machine learning to be more precise. And of course, we worked very closely with the professor who developed this back in '97 to understand it fully and make the best plans possible. I think the positive on this is there are processes, we're starting to publish a lot more about this. There are tools being developed. There's a lot of work on software preservation at many levels, both, there's this amazing project called Software Heritage that literally goes into GitHub, and anything that is open source that has the right kind of licenses, it just sucks it out and keeps copies that you can go and search for. There's an amazing project going on in the US and now in Australia looking at emulation and creating systems for whole computers running historical software to allow access, which it's a mess because of copyright. So I couldn't go and ask my colleagues in Australia to, well, I could, but not officially or legally, you can't really go and access their machines to run our stuff, but it's there. So so it's a growing field. It's an amazing field in development, really exciting. But it's like 15 years behind the technology. And I need to say this here, there is one person I know of who's been doing quite a lot on blockchain called Regina Arsani. I'm not sure. In New York. And she's been looking a lot at blockchain and what it means to preserve it. So we spend a lot of time thinking about this. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you're not. I wanted to mention that in the break, but now I think it's such a relevant thing to address as well. There's this place for all of the artists. Like, you can also embrace it yourself. And I really like that you said, well, I take all of the learnings from net art because there's been so much research done there. And one project I wanted to point out is Lima is this place in Amsterdam. It's short for Living Media Art. It's old Dutch Media Art Institute, so the conservation part still. But together with Constant Dullard, this net artist, they created this somewhat system. So as an artist, you can record your own work on various levels. So they have a way of embedding code, but also interacting with the piece and how you should record it from the back and the screen and multiple ways. So for the future, it can be a document that that even after you die can explain a bit more about the context of the work. And I think and that's easy to do yourself. So it's just one example, but you see all of these examples popping up to just preserve.
When Lino mentioned remediation, which I think it's a concept that we are familiar with through authors. I think, Lino, please correct me if I'm wrong, but since McLuhan at least. But now then Patrícia said emulation, and now you, Florian, say also documentation. These are elements which are probably layers that should work together into doing something that is still very difficult. That is this idea that most of the works that we are talking about are probably screen-based, but not all of them. And I wanted to ask Florian, as an art curator involved in the idea of care, which is in the etymology of the curating, and what do you think is the most difficult part? The part that is related to software and presented on a screen, or all the rest of the nuts and bolts, all the other stuff, the mechanical, electromechanical?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think it's. I'm running through my head to the recent studio visits I did the last couple of weeks, and well, then I just say space is the biggest, of course, and so of course I've seen so many of these just boxed-in artworks that haven't been presented since their first premiere. So I think that but that's far away from this conversation. But and the majority of the artists that we work with, they're of course also have the privilege of buying multiple sets of the hardware. So usually, like the first 20 years, they're somewhat fine hardware-wise with some backup motors and everything. But what I, in a machine learning type of work, see happening quite often is that just presenting these, I've seen a lot of really beautiful performances where, like, really this example of off-the-shelf facial or body recognition systems, they're just not able to be performed again because of just a tiny update, or just the database becoming a lot bigger because they just added a whole new library to it. And so I would say software-wise, it's something to really continually think about.
I don't know if now that we have had some rounds of discussion, maybe it's time to open in case that somebody wants to say something, because we've been talking a lot and there are different topics and concepts that are floating around. I don't know if any of our guests who have spoken before or any other person in the audience wants to add something to the discussion. Mar wants to speak. Varvara is saying no.
Of course.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to point out a couple of things. One is that I always listen that, the media art and new media art is so difficult to maintain and to preserve and so on. But when I go to the museums and I met the people of conservation, like you see these 20, 30 people staff, and what they're doing is actually preserving not media art, they're actually preserving paperwork, sculptures, and when you see the processes for restoring and maintaining these works is, I don't know, sometimes they have to do this kind of tomographies and X-rays and so on. And just I wanted to point out that I think the problem that institutions has is that they don't have experts on this,
yes,
on this part.
Totally agree.
And they are very afraid to have software or to have like an installation or to have a computer running. But in fact, actually tech companies, you know, there is some computers called mainframes from IBM, the first ones, and they're still on use. I don't know if you know, they are in the power plants in northern Finland, in whatever, in many places. I have one American friend in Estonia. His father installed these mainframes, and he's still on pension. But sometimes he's called by a random power plant in somewhere because one work that he did 40 years before, and now they need to change one bulb or whatever, and then they call, and they are very afraid because there's a key infrastructure that runs on these things. And as far as I know, some banks, they also have this kind of mainframes on the core of everything, and then layers and layers and layers of technology, and that's why still COBOL programmers are, if they find someone who has 20 years of experience, they can make huge money nowadays because there's many little people who has 20, 30 years of experience, and there is this underlying layers that, But just to going back to the art is, I think that we need to try to get these experts on the institutions, because that's actually what is stopping the institutions to collect practices like we saw today, because they are very afraid of them. And I hope that...
I totally agree. We have a restoration team here that is dedicated to rascaya, chiki, a little bit pantocrator from centuries ago. We can have these geek people restoring this kind of electronics or softwares or emulators or whatever. So, yeah. And they are doing their part.
And thinking about all that diversity of cultural artifacts that we produce and more produce and overproduce, but if we think about singular, like those mainframes that computers that Mar was telling us about, or we think that also some engineers on pension from NASA who were part of the original team of the Apollo have been called back to the station because 1 year ago they started getting like very fuzzy, strange messages from Apollo, and it's still running. So this kind of cultural artifact in that sense, for me, Apollo is like it's the man-made or the human-made object that is further away from Earth, and we should think about conservation also of objects that are not anymore in our orbit, maybe. Not only physically, but culturally as well. There are some cultural artifacts and artworks that for me, when we are in front of them, we don't even see them as artworks anymore. So somehow, it's not the problem only of the replication of a process similar to the process of production of the artwork, but it's also the remediation of the cultural mindset and the cultural system around that work, which was the context for that to be significant. No? Are there any thoughts about this reception and how curators recontextualize, reframe, not only restore or remediate? I don't know, whoever. Sorry, maybe
there's one thing that I wanted to say. I know maybe it's 24, 25 people that all over the world, and you probably know them as well, that do have the expertise of working in such a manner with media art, and I would just feel bad if we didn't recognize them as well. But they're for sure they're not enough. It's urgent to have many more people working in this field. One thing I thought about is, and I'm happy that it's also in the previous panel we talked about it. It's also, of course, like all of the climate discussions around working with these type of things, but also like the inequality that's surrounding working with AI. We touched upon it a little bit, and that's my main personal research that I find quite important, and it surfaced in a couple of ways in my curatorial practice in V2. So one thing, like the coming 4 years, of course, I will be working with many AI works, but and I've been doing this for 4 years or longer already. But I also thought, well, this means also dissecting like all of these thematics around it, and I started also with one group exhibition thinking what inequality in general is, and then looking at what this computational inequality could be, that turned into another exhibition with a small publication reflecting on this as well. So I hope it somewhat answers the question, but I really think that like all of these topics are really important to also unpack in exhibitions, and that's really important to me as well. And that's, maybe you have something to add.
No, it's sort of the environmental impact of what we do is something that's been on the back of my mind, and I kind of go like, well, maybe we just need to stop, which doesn't help very much. So, but thinking about your idea, the idea of the context, it is a big question if you're talking about conservation. When you have, there is a very good case study made at MoMA a few years back on, I can't remember the name of the artist, who had created a piece back, I think, in the early 80s, where they were or late 90s probably, getting news from the Vietnam War via fax in the gallery, and they showed it at MoMA maybe 5 years ago or so. And the question was, okay, so what are we going to do? Are we going to do the anachronic fax machine with the news, with fake news, old news from Vietnam, or what's this concept? Are we going to go back and have news about, well, it was before the war in Ukraine started, but would we now do, I don't know, Twitter and or X and war in Ukraine. What's important about this work and how does this come through? And I think they went the way of full recreating the furniture and the machine, but they themselves were kind of going like, well, we could have gone completely the other way and have done something else. And I think the artist was okay with both options. But that's it. The other thing is, so there is hope, and there's lots of people being trained. There's more conservators. The Reina Sofia now has somebody, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years, and there's people in Valencia as well, in Spain specifically. So there's more people coming. But also, like, if you talk to conservators, like, there's no jobs. And what I feel is there's so much good work that is not going to get collected, that if the artists themselves, and I know it's always on the artists that you put the onus and you get the extra work, and if you're working in an institution, then they should be trying to avoid that as much as possible. But at the end of the day, if it's your work and you value it, then maybe, it's on you, because nobody else is going to care. Unless, maybe you're lucky, maybe you have good friends or curators that like your work and can help with that. But, the buck stops with who's creating it, really.
It makes me feel like that maybe we should recover the spirit of the monasteries and somehow artists come together more, maybe as in part like as in a union because of the industrial aspect of this media, but in part also as a community of care for some cultural heritage. Maybe that's not the word. I want to give the microphone to Lino.
Roxy,
maybe if I can ask Pau or Hugo to put... ok, so bueno, never mind.
Si puedes traducir tú.
Sí, claro.
A ver, lo primero, que en un mundo feliz tendríamos recursos para procesar, pero no solo no es feliz, sino que es agresivo, porque de hecho la administración pública obliga a usar Windows. Y los recursos que tiene un museo como Reina Sofía son, vamos, pero de risa.
In a happy, perfect world, we would have money and resources to remediate, but then we have some obstacles like bureaucracy that in Spain, for instance, in the public administration, you must use Windows operating systems. And this is something that if you are in a museum, supongo, ¿no? Restaurando una obra en Linux, no, tienes que ponerle en...
yo hice el estudio de conservación de Guernica.
Sí, lo sé.
Y yo me negué. O sea, si no era con Linux, yo no lo hacía.
Okay.
Y eso me costó una uveitis. Yo descubrí lo que era la uvea cuando se me inflamó una cosa en el ojo que se llama uvea. Porque aquello era un sin vivir.
Lino was the expert responsible for the restoration of Guernica. The study of restoration was quite complex, but being part of public administration, the study had to be done with Windows operating system. And Lino discovered what an uveitis is. It's an inflammation of some kind of glands in the head when trying to convince the public administration that that work needed to be done on a Linux operating system, not a Windows operating system.
Y lo otro,
es muy complicado esto que me pides traducir.
Dos datos. La migración y la emulación son solo dos estrategias de remediación. Hay más.
Migration and remediation are only two of the possible strategies.
Y termino. Al artista lo protege la ley de la propiedad intelectual, pero al museo le protege la ley de patrimonio histórico español. No está los new media, que lo sepáis. Entonces, ¿qué ocurre? Pues que el museo tiene que restaurar lo que adquiere. O sea, eso de que no, yo quiero que sea diferente. La ley de patrimonio histórico español no te lo permite.
So Lino says that there are like two levels of law, at least in Spain, one protecting the author's rights, the other protecting the patrimonial mission of the public institutions like museums. But then in this second law, there is no consideration for media art or whatsoever. It's only like the traditional mediums which are considered art. And this means that there are some gray areas in which no work can be properly done because there's no legal framework to develop it. Más o menos. I don't know if we are. Is there time for one last word? Yes.
There's one thing I wanted to, because I know some Spanish collectors that, so that's the field that can be really interesting as well. Like, of course, that's happened to many art forms throughout history, where the moment somebody starts buying it and finds it valuable, and well, here in Spain you have a couple,
New Art Foundation.
The New Art Foundation, and then we partnered up with them a couple of times, and even like their road feels so logical. Like we've been collaborating with developing works in V2 that became part of their collection, and they. It's a school example of also buying all the hardware, or even multiple times, to be able to maintain it in years ahead. So that could be a way to do. I've seen that happening in the Netherlands as well. That the moment people start with money, think it's valuable, that's usually what gets the ball rolling as well.
Thank you for mentioning that, Florian, because of course New Art Foundation is a player that has been investing in different ways and I think they have done an important job in promoting art, collecting it, and also in facilitating artists to have equipment to show their work sometimes. But now they are with this large project that will probably be opened in April next year, which is a large archive of a new media art museum from their collection that partly will be available in showrooms or exhibition rooms, partly will be available in catalogs in which they will try to promote the circulation in different art circuits, and of course open to people for studying the cultural objects as they are, not through documentation, which for me really makes a difference.
And I call it a school example because I also have some examples in China and in on a really small scale in the Netherlands, collectors that also approach it in this way because they are still worldwide quite unique. But you see people also picking up that practice. So it's that. So there's not only hope in like the institutional field, but also maybe there somewhere.
Hopefully. I wanted to ask a last thing to Patrícia, out of pure curiosity. Do you think that being a work considered somehow digital, maybe only software, in the case that the work is only software, do you think that makes the price lower than if it's created with some other sort of materials? And I was talking about this complex restoration of the chemically based paintings of the 15th century. But do you think that there is a depreciation of the artwork when it is software based?
I am not sure, actually. I don't get involved in, by the time I find a work, it's already been, well, it's very far along in the process of acquisition. So I don't even necessarily know the prices that are paid. I did have one, so from an institutional perspective, what I could say though is, we worked with Young Hei Chang Heavy Industries on acquiring 2 of their pieces. And we didn't buy them, they were gifts. So they were like, well, we can't sell these works. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure you are now big enough that you can sell them. I don't know how much you could be paid for, but you're famous enough you could probably sell them if you had a gallery, which they don't. But what I did tell them was, by buying this work, we are investing, a good 2 months of staff time, working with external contractors or specialists with you. So it's not like Tate, they didn't see any money from Tate in this case. But we are investing quite a lot of resources in keeping their works running. So, which, sorry, doesn't make any artist happy, probably. But
it's better than losing the work, but of course the optimal way to be in an institution is by being collected and... Yeah. Okay, I don't...
I've seen some school examples, really practical answer to your questions, where even the big museum, the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, asked to just also make a video piece of this software work, because then they were able to either buy it or even pay more for it. So I think there's some currently some truth in this, but that's...
Okay, with this feeling that not only new media are unstable, but only that truth itself is unstable and context dependent, maybe we close this colloquium. I don't want to finish this session without saying that we have been working very hard at the university at the end of the semester to make this summit possible, and especially thanks to the direction of Sonar and Andrea Faropa, and thanks to the two wonderful directors that we have of the summit at UPF, or Teresa Roch and Andrea Olmedo. And also thank to the organization of the UPF itself for creating this platform, Arsenal, which has made possible the existence of the Rainfish Film Festival and all the different arms of this program. We are really excited, and we are also exhausted at this moment. But the whole team would like to say also thanks to the audience, and thanks to also some of our collaborators. I'm going to only mention three, which are the CCCV, the Generalitat de Catalunya, the Catalan autonomous government, and the Ajuntament de Barcelona, the Barcelona City Hall, and also to the Consell Social of UPF, who has made this possible. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next year.